Hello, Suzanne Kellner-Zinck with Dawning Visions Hypnosis here to speak about a very important topic that a commenter made on my last video. And that's, how do you approach a therapist who's lacking engagement and attention when you're sitting in their therapy room? This is so hard for so many patients, and therapists really don't think about this very much, if at all. Because if they did, they wouldn't do the things they do. But that's not to say that therapists aren't human. All human beings, and all human beings make mistakes. And that's why it's the client's job to hold them accountable. You are paying for their time. You're paying a lot for that insurance that you have that reimburses them. And if you're self-paying, as all my clients are, being a hypnotist and not being in the insurance business at all, you have a right to get what you're paying for. So these are some of the things that I suggest that you do. First of all, I would think about what it is that's going on that's causing you to feel like they're not attending to you. And there could be a lot of those things going on. If they're looking at their watch, if they're spending more time looking at their computer or their pad of paper than into your eyes, if they're not really responding to what you're saying in some meaningful way in terms of repeating back the things that you said using their own language, even to check in to see if what they believe you mean is actually what you mean. Now, for some people, it's okay to do it in the moment when it's happening. Because, as you know, when we train dogs, not to necessarily compare therapists to dogs, but it is true, it's easier for people to take responsibility for the behavior that they just did than waiting a week to tell them about it, because they may not recall it or they might deny it. And that kind of causes a problem for the patient, because you need them to recognize that you're saying something needs to change here. It's not working for you. And they don't have any way of knowing that unless you tell them that. So I would just use this phraseology. The session isn't really going the way that I would like it to go, and this is why. And just tell them what they're doing that's not working for you. They're not looking at you. They're not interacting with you. They're not showing that they're listening to what you have to say by having an interaction with you that is meaningful to you, the reason you're there in the first place. Or maybe it's just that they don't really give you any suggestions on how to better your life. And that's kind of a criticism I get a lot from clients who used to see conventionally trained therapists who came to work with me. They would say things like, I could sit there and talk to them about the same thing over and over again, but they never gave me any ideas on how to improve my life. Everything's the same. Maybe I feel a little bit better about this thing, that thing, but overall, it's been a waste of time. Trust me, if you tell your therapist that you're wasting your time and money seeing them, they're going to have some kind of reaction to it. Hopefully a response. Reaction is an immediate something or another, and they might get all defensive and riled up about it. And that means that they're not grown up enough to be your therapist. So that would be an indicator to me to tell them, you know what? That response right there, that reaction right there, tells me that you don't have the capacity to help me. Thanks. I'm going elsewhere. And it's your right to do that. You are paying for services. And this is one of the things my dad, the dentist, always taught me. When you're paying someone for a service, and they're not able to do what they need to do to deliver that service in a way that works for you, the person paying, it's time to move on. You don't worry about their degrees and licenses. They're meaningless if a person is incapable of providing the services that work for you. And there can be a lot of different reasons for this. Maybe there's a personality that doesn't work. This is something that happens a lot of times. And I'm really upfront with my potential clients. That's why I have a free consultation with each and every one of them. Because I have a very strong personality. And I do not let my people get away with anything. I hold them accountable. I teach them things to help them to move on with their lives when they're not in the office with me. Because I don't want them in my office with me for the rest of their lives. That's not helping them. That's causing codependency. That's unhealthy in every society, but for some reason, America, where people feel like they always have to have somebody helping them do things that normal people, adults, and even some kids are capable of doing on their own. It's ridiculous. So that's one way of handling it. The second way of handling it is done after you're done with a session and you left not feeling so good about it. And it takes a little bit of time to kind of figure out why. And I would suggest that you journal about what happened in the session so you can get in touch with those aspects of the interaction that didn't work with you. And when you go in for your next session, you start the session saying, I have some things to share with you. And then go into what went wrong. And just talk about the behavior, why it didn't work for you. I don't know, I had a psychiatrist years ago who blatantly told me I would never be able to become a psychologist because I had bipolar, at that time known as manic depression. We're going back to, the late 80s. Who in the hell is she to tell me what I can and cannot do? I guess she never read Kay Redfield Jamison's books, who was herself a psychologist. She ended up getting out of therapy and going into research and wrote amazing books with the last third, all the notes of all the research she used to write her books. But my point is this: no one has the right to tell you what you can and cannot do in this life. It is up to you to go out there and see what you can do with your life. And that is what every mental health professional should be helping their clients aspire to do and be. And I am in a doctoral program right now for psychology, working very hard to shift the thinking of what the conventional mental health providers are providing based on a bunch of theory, most of it a bunch of bullshit in my estimation, to practical, actionable steps, using tools and techniques to help their clients to actually stop the negative thoughts and behaviors they're having and create lives based on what they would love their lives to be looking like. Because our lives are only as magnificent as we dare to dream them to be and do the actions necessary to make it happen. And a therapist is a person who's supposed to be able to help you do those things. So if they're not able to help you do those things, fire them and move on to next. The problem with a lot of these situations is that the therapists really do believe that their licenses give them license to tell you what to think, what to feel, and what you're able to do. I'm here to tell you that is absolutely incorrect. Their license doesn't give them anything other than the right licensure to practice. That's it. But no one's really helping them practice in a way that works for their patients, or the patients wouldn't be complaining about why they can't find competent therapists, which is the topic of the previous video in which this particular individual commented on, wanting to know how to deal with these problems with therapists. Now, I'm not here to tell you to beat up your therapist. That's not the point. The point is just to be real, be transparent, and ask them to put more of themselves into the work they're doing with you. Because this is the other thing. One of the reasons I will never be a licensed therapist. I am very transparent about my past, how I overcame the problems, and I share the methods that worked with other clients that had similar problems as their own because they've been proven to work. That's why. We need techniques and ideas on how to think differently that actually worked to change a person's life for the better. That is the work of therapy. Coaching, on the other hand, is not about doing deep dives into people's personalities and what's wrong with them. As I was discussing with a really good friend of mine who's a coach, she says, I start from the present and we go through the actions necessary to help the person create the business they want to create. She's a business coach. What a concept, people. So if you're going to a coach and they're trying to help you deal with your prior problems and your emotional difficulties, that is the wrong person. They are not trained to do that. They are told in coaching school, if they actually attended it, that that's not their job. However, there are some coaches that have been psychologists and other types of therapists in their previous lives, and they put coaching into their practice. Those people are obviously licensed to do that work. So know the difference. And also know the difference between a health coach and a medical professional. Because there's a lot of health coaches out there who are telling you that because they were able to heal XYZ disease, they can help you do the same. I'm here to tell you that if they have no understanding of the anatomy and physiology, they have no understanding of psychology, psychiatry, they have no understanding of anything that matters in terms of how a person develops, they have no right telling you how to help you heal. They don't know. Many of these people are selling concoctions, supplements, devices, I don't know, whatever. My suggestion is for you to go to a professional who is licensed, who at least ought to have the underlying information to help you get the correct testing done so you can find out what is going on with you. Because one of the other things that I found over 23 and a half years or more being in hypnosis practice is that there's some emotionally looking problems that are actually physiological. And I will not be able to help them because they're not emotionally based. And some of those problems are, I don't know, heavy metals, not being able to metabolize the nutrients that create the neurotransmitters for clarity of thinking and emotional regulation. And I had one client, it took forever first to figure this out. She wasn't making dopamine, serotonin, or GABA. I had a compounding pharmacist near me who she went to, and we found that out, but we didn't know how to help her. I sent her to an integrative doctor who finally figured it out, that it was genetic mutation on both sides of her family. And it can even be the food that you eat, especially for those on the autistic spectrum, all these preservatives and artificial this and that, it kills them because the bottom line is they're missing a bacteria in their gut that those of us who do not have those issues have in our system. So there's a reason why they shouldn't be eating that crap. And that's for all you parents who don't know how to say no to your child and keep them away from all those caffeine type beverages because that makes them more crazy than anything else, especially with the caffeine and all the sugar that's in them to boot. We need to understand why we're in therapy. We need to understand what we want to get from the therapy, and we need to understand if the person in front of us is capable of giving us those things in the delivery of their services. And it's okay to try several therapists before you find the one that will work for you. Yes, I'll tell you this. When I was really sick back in the 80s, I went through 3 psychiatrists. I was very lucky that the case manager, who happened to be a Harvard-educated psychologist, recognized that each one was not the right fit for me for different reasons and took me away from one and put me into another. And finally, I found the person who I stayed with for 13 years. But even she couldn't help me overcome my problems. She helped me a lot in my marriage. She helped me a lot with understanding certain things, but she wasn't able to get rid of the symptoms and problems that the manic depression, otherwise known as bipolar 2 today, was playing havoc in my life for these moods. It was only Ted James and timeline therapy that ultimately helped me get rid of it forever. And it was 5 minutes knowing the 3 negative emotions that needed to be, shall we say, changed and cleared. That is what helped me ultimately. Kind of ironic, 5 minutes over 14 years. Go figure. So this is a really important message for all of you folks because there's too many providers out there pretending to know how to help people when they don't have the basic knowledge to be able to help anyone particularly. You have a lot of providers out there who have not healed their own garbage, which is a lot of what I covered in the previous video, and therefore they get triggered by the things their patients bring in. And I'm telling you right here, right now, if you have a therapist who gets triggered, they get upset, they start crying, they get angry, whatever, they're not able to be that safe, calm zone that you need while you're talking about these things. That person does not belong being a therapist. I don't care how many degrees and licensures they have. They don't have it. The other thing that you need to know is that for some people, there are times when you have to be very kind and supportive. And for other people, you have to kick them in the proverbial ass because they're not listening. They're not doing what they need to do. They're making all these excuses and they're saying 2 things that don't go together. Talking out of both sides of their mouth. It's the way that we say it colloquially. And those people want that to be done because they realize that without it, they're just playing games with themselves. Those are my clients, by the way. The people are ready to actually do the work and don't mind being called on the garbage they're doing to themselves because they understand it's self-destructive. I would suggest to the therapists out there listening to this that you think about who the person is in front of you and how you can best work with them, with their personality, and with their self-manipulative behaviors, because those self-manipulations become manipulations on other people, including yourself, in case you haven't figured that one out. So this stuff can stop. It's really, really, really important. Yeah, meet your patient where they're at, but that means different things for different patients at different times in the therapy process. So let's just be very real with ourselves. Again, I thank you so much for asking this very important question. And I do welcome questions in the comments. It gives me ideas for new videos because I'm here to serve you ultimately. So if you have a question, I confused you about something, or you didn't really understand what I was trying to say, put it in the comments and I'll answer it in another video. And it would help if you subscribed, get this stuff out to more people. And that's about all I have to say because you made a decision how valuable my videos are to you on your own. As always, I thank you for spending your time with me. Till next time.